Hi, I'm Linda. I'm the lady of Lady and the Frogs, and this is quite an overdue video because, well, it's going to form part of my Vlogmas anyway, but I thought I would come on and talk about my experience with COVID-19, because a lot of the videos that I seem to have are people in America. Now I'm in the UK, so my experience, I don't know, it's I've had a positive test and I have been really ill back in November. Today is, what are we on? It is December the 18th, so it's Friday, so it would be 5 weeks today since I've actually been exposed to COVID-19. Well, when I first started showing symptoms, and I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come on, because obviously everybody is going to be rushing off now. People will be finishing work today and they'll be rushing off to go and see their relatives so that they can attempt to kill them. It is no joke. Mine started symptomless. I haven't left my home really. I was on the shielding list because I've got asthma, so I did all that where I didn't go out at all throughout, March right through to June, end of June, and then it was the middle of June they took me off the list. I think that was just partly because they didn't want to keep sending me emergency food boxes, so they just said strike you off the list. So I've sort of been out, but I've been doing, the washing your hands thing, carrying the gel, wearing my mask, but I've ended up getting it because my husband, he has been back at work. He initially lost his job, but then he's been working from May onwards because they realised that they were stuffed. So they asked to bring him back and he thought, well, better the devil you know. So he was working, they are the devil. He was working in a social bubble. And I think that's why it's relevant that I talk about it just prior to Christmas, because he was working in a social bubble. So there was about 4 or 5 of them. So he was working with 3 people, sometimes a 4th person. And his symptoms, I've written it on the calendar because we have to work out. I didn't know I was going to get absolutely barraged with text messages and phone calls from Trap and Trace telling me when, well, inconsistent messages. So Wednesday the 11th, Remembrance Day, would have been the day that he first started having symptoms, because he said, oh, I've got a bit of a sniffly nose. But he just went to bed early because he just felt a bit run down. So this was like 5 days into our lockdown, well, a week into our lockdown. So he'd obviously, somebody who he'd been working with had obviously gone out and about with people just prior to lockdown, or, mixed with somebody who had it, or went to a super spreader last hurrah, that's what they call it, at the pub, and he'd obviously picked up something from them because he was only working with these few people. So on the Thursday, because he had this like runny nose at work, they were a bit like, you seem really run down, we don't want you to give it to everybody else, go home. So he came home and he did sleep all day, but then on the Friday he got up and he was like, well, I'm right as rain, I just had a runny nose, I felt tired, and we didn't think anything of it, we really didn't. At which point I was aware that I was coming down with something viral, because I am asthmatic and I take this on a regular basis, and I have to take two puffs of this twice a day. It's quite a strong steroid inhaler, and I know when I'm coming down with something viral because I take it and I think, oh, have I just taken my inhalers? And it never feels like it's that effective. So I knew on the Friday that I was starting to come down with something, but my husband, he felt right as rain, and he rang work and he says, well, I can be back on Monday. And they were like, yeah, okay, then that's fine then if you're better. Then over the weekend, somebody from his workplace rang him on Saturday night, as you do, and said, no, we won't have you back until you've had a COVID test. And he was like, well, to get a free COVID test, I have to have a temperature, a continuous cough, or a loss of sense of taste and smell. And those are the three things that in the UK you have to have before they'll let you have the test, which is this. So they were like, oh, well, you know, okay, fair enough. And then they rang him again on Sunday and says, no, you've got to have this test done. We won't let you back. So on Monday, he went and had the test. He really didn't think anything of it because he just thought, well, I've had a runny nose. That's all I've had. Runny nose. I feel like I've got a runny nose because I've had the heating on. Yeah, so didn't really think anything of it. We had been out and about at the weekend because I wasn't feeling bad. I had a runny nose, and I do remember going into the Tesco. I went into a local Tesco just to get some like oranges and lemons and ginger and things to fight a cold, because I just thought, whatever it is, I just don't want it. So I remember going around this very small corner shop Tesco. Jason sat in the car because it's one of those places where people like to get into a car crash. So I went round the shop and just grabbed a few things, you know, only a basket full of stuff, and paid for it and came out. And my mask was absolutely wringing wet through. And I'd never known it to be like that for five minutes in a shop. And I was like, oh, geez. I showed Jason, and I was like, this is a bit weird, isn't it? But obviously at that point, I had COVID and I didn't know. And so did Jason have COVID and he didn't know. So I had this test on the Monday. It took them until Wednesday morning to come back with a text message saying, oh, you're positive. So at that point, we are on Wednesday the 18th. He'd had symptoms since the 11th, so that had been a week in. He'd obviously had a text message from Track and Trace saying you can't, it's part of the positive test results saying you can't go out. But literally, I think because he'd had symptoms for so long, they did say that he was allowed out on the 21st, which was, by that time, it was only 3 days later. So, you know, unbeknownst to us, when we were symptomless, completely symptomless, we were at our most contagious. And that's the point. I think that's the point. And I'm so angry with the government that all this year you have to have cough, temperature, or loss of taste and smell to get a free test. So all these people who've had other symptoms, who they've been the ones who've been spreading it, absolutely no idea. It feels like very intentional. It just feels very wrong, and that's why I'm so angry. So obviously at this point, I mean, I've been sleeping next to my husband at the point when he was contagious, and he didn't have symptoms of anything other than this cold. But, you know, I knew I already had it by then. Track and Trace had told us to stay put. They text you like absolute crazy. I had so many texts and phone calls from them. It was ridiculous. So as far as I was concerned, because my first symptom was my inhalers not working and me feeling a bit snotty, I thought that I would be allowed out on the 23rd. And that's what the first text message that I had made sense. So I didn't have any of the traditional symptoms, but I think on the Thursday, maybe Friday, no, it was the Thursday, I lost all sense of taste. So what I did was I ordered one of these because we were supposed to be self-isolating anyway. Well, we were self-isolating, we didn't leave the place, and I just didn't want to have to get in the car and go out because we're in a flat and we have to keep walking through a communal area. So I ordered this one, which comes through the post, and you do it at home. It's just exactly the same. This is the one that my husband did, so that's the one that you do when you go in the car, and they fill in the receipt. Did a really good job of filling in the receipt for us, didn't you? Yeah, it is a shit show. It is so badly organised, and I think this is it. I expected to stop feeling angry about it, which is why I've waited 5 weeks to do this video. But that's the situation. So I did the home test. Because my husband was coming out of the contagion period and his text said that he could go out on the 21st, I just thought, right, well, I'll do my test on Saturday morning and then we'll put it in one of these priority post boxes, because you have to make sure that it's collected the same day, and then they'll do the test for it. So I got up that morning, didn't brush my teeth or anything, and did all that up my nose, back, either side of your tonsil, and sent it off from a vial, and you have to register online. So I sent that off, and then of course it came back. So bearing in mind that I posted mine on Saturday, before 11 o'clock pickup, I had to do it for, because it has to be an hour before the last pickup. I got my text message on the Sunday, but I wasn't a problem because I wasn't going anywhere. And then I get another text message saying that I'm not allowed out until the 30th of November now. So they moved my goalpost along another week, even though I technically had symptoms prior to that. So yeah, still not that symptom, still nothing that bad. It was annoying not being able to taste anything. I did have this runny nose. Jason was feeling a bit run down, so we just sat and we binge watched The Crown, and that's what we did. I was quite aware that I had something that was killing people, so I was taking it easy. I wasn't doing any of my work. I closed my business. I put it on holiday settings. I put it on holiday settings until like the Monday, and because then Jason could start delivering my things and doing my packaging while I was still contagious. I run an eBay business for anybody who doesn't watch my other videos. So where was I? By the next week, so I've already had it for a week now, and then from about the 23rd onwards, which was Monday the 23rd, which was when I was 10 days exposed, which it technically should be my time when I can start going out again, but because they then dated it from my positive test result, it was a week later. That was the week where I started feeling really bad. So I'd already had it for 10 days, I'd been exposed 10 days, and then I started feeling really ill, and I was taking this one, my blue inhaler. I was needing that all the time. I couldn't get a breath in. Well, I'm still a bit like it in that I can't get a deep breath in, but I'm not like I was, because I was having to like yawn to try and get oxygen in. I started feeling absolute agonising pain in my rib cage here. It was like somebody had been digging you in the side suddenly, and I could feel every part of me there. I wasn't sleeping at night. I just couldn't get into a position where I could breathe. This was my other lifesaver. I was on the Fisherman's Friends, which have got eucalyptus. I was having to like have a shower just to get some steam into my lungs. I was having baths all the time, or baths, as I actually do pronounce it. just because I felt like I needed the water on my body, I needed the steam. So I was like suffering. At the end of that week, I started developing the cough, along with the fact that I couldn't breathe in. So that was 2 weeks in, and now I was in a bad way. I'd already been taking my blue inhaler for, in excess for a week. When I first started feeling like that on the Monday, I did speak to my doctor. I rang them and they couldn't give a flying. I've never been so disappointed in my life. I don't think the NHS are doing a grand job anyway, but now that the pandemic is on, obviously all I could get was a call back because I had a positive test. But the doctor that I spoke to, he was doing his washing up, playing with his dog. I could hear his washing machine on. It just didn't give a damn. The thing that I was asking is if they had anything, any advice for me as an asthmatic on things that I could do. But there wasn't really anything. Track and trace by this time, I mean, they phoned on a daily basis, and if you didn't answer in the morning, and I'm thinking, because I was asleep in the morning because I'd spent so long at night trying to get into a position where I could sleep that I was sleeping in the morning, and then my phone was ringing at 8:30 in the morning with track and trace, checking whether I was still in the flat and I hadn't left. That's all they were bothered with, was whether you were out there spreading it to others. And when I asked them, I says, well, I'm not getting on very well. What can I do? Because I don't want to end up in a situation where I'm in hospital, but I can feel myself going downhill. So they said phone 111 if because they'll have some experts, some COVID experts, and they'll know. And that's something what my doctor said as well. And I had a few links to websites which, were just government websites, which are absolutely useless. So at this point, because I was having the trouble with the breathing, I was like, I'm very aware that I'd previously had something very similar to a coronavirus, and it's one of the reasons why I've ended up having to give up work and why I'm on that higher dose inhaler. So the physiotherapy that I did there, I started doing that for myself because I felt that was all I had. So I thought, well, I'll try that. These breathing exercises, because you tend to, with a cold as an asthmatic, you start breathing out of here rather than breathing out of there. So I was doing those exercises 3 times a day, and they were sort of working. I was sort of getting somewhere, and I was just like, well, I've got this infection. I'll keep drinking the juice. I'll keep doing what I'm doing, having these showers, and keeping the steam in my lungs, keeping the eucalyptus up. I remember Jason had gone and got me hummus and crackers, and I was eating lots of hummus and crackers, but that was about the only thing that I really wanted to eat, because it was the only thing that I could sort of like detect the texture of, because I had no taste buds by then. But then gradually my taste buds came back with the hummus. So thank you, Sainsbury's, for all your flavoured hummus. So by the end of that first week where I was feeling really bad, I think it was the 28th, and it was a Saturday, when I phoned 111, because my breathing was just out of hand. It just wasn't, I wasn't doing very well at all. Now, I've phoned 111 in the past and they've been really good. I phoned them for myself, and they offer you advice. And I've phoned them for my husband as well, and they were very good then. This time was absolutely diabolical. I told them that I had this COVID thing, and I was struggling to breathe, and I couldn't really talk either. I had trouble getting a sentence out, so it was really difficult for me to be on the phone. And this is where I've become really angry again, because I spoke to one call handler who then said, well, somebody else will call you back. And then I had to go through all the information I'd just been through with the first call handler again. And then somebody else was supposed to call me back, a doctor or a clinician. They actually rang me back while I was still on the phone to the other person, because they'd put it in on the computer and they were still speaking to me. And then they rang, and then they rang again, and then I spoke to somebody else, and again she was at home playing with her dog, and had her infant child in the background. So, you know, she was aggravating enough. She didn't even seem, she was supposed to be one of these COVID experts. She didn't even know that I had COVID, a positive diagnosis of COVID. So then she ordered me an ambulance. I didn't know that that's what she was doing, because she said, oh, well, I'll get somebody else to call you back. And then the next thing I know, I've got the North West Ambulance Service ringing me up saying, right, well, we need to know where we're sending this ambulance to because you can't breathe. Well, yeah, but I've got asthma, so it might be my asthma symptoms, and I need, you know, I just want some advice on what I can do with COVID and asthma, and what I need, you know, whether I need to do that. I don't feel that I'm in a position where I need to be, you know, sent off in an ambulance to a COVID ward. So then she got somebody else to ring me back. And this guy was useless too. So then somebody else rang me back. This is 2.5 hours in. I've had to repeat the same information in the end to 6 people, because everybody is completely clueless. They just want to send you to hospital. I knew I wasn't in the situation where I was needing hospital treatment, but in a normal situation where I have a cough or a cold with asthma, I'm able to go into my doctors and they say, yes, you've got something on your chest. I mean, I knew I could feel the fluid. That's what the pain was here. I could feel the fluid on my lung. So I'm thinking, you've got things that you can give me. You've given me oral steroids in the past. I've had things like prednisolone, but one of the doctors who I'd spoken to suggested that prednisolone wasn't the best thing for you to have while you had COVID. So I thought, well, one of these experts will know. But there were no experts. Nobody was an expert. Nobody even knew that I had COVID on the phone. They just kept getting alarmed and being weird. And by which it almost felt like they were trying to put me into a panic. You know, but I'm familiar with my own condition. I know not to panic, because that's what triggers an asthma attack. So I'm trying to stay calm, but I'm getting really angry, because 2.5 hours of repeating the same information to 6 people when you're not very well is absolutely ridiculous. And I've never known 111 to be like that, but that was my experience. And eventually I ended up speaking to somebody. The final person said, well, you have to go right now to an out of hours surgery, which was right out in the middle of Shitsville. It was a 20-minute drive. They wouldn't send an ambulance. They wanted somebody to drive me. It was 8:30 at night. My husband had already had a drink, and I was like, well, by the time I'm going to be seen by somebody, it's going to be 11 o'clock at night. I know this. I mean, I know how these things work. By the time we're there, it's going to be 9:30, and then everybody will be as clueless as you lot are, and I won't get anywhere. And this is not any good for my health either, because I just need to relax for the evening. So I pushed this guy to give me an appointment for the following day, which he didn't want to do, because they only want to deal with things in an emergency basis, which is ridiculous. It's not helpful to anybody dealing with everything as if it's an emergency. It wasn't. I was suffering from bad asthma, which was triggered by COVID-19, but nobody had any idea how to deal with any of this. These COVID experts didn't exist. So the next day, 8 a.m, we went to this appointment. The place is absolutely deserted. They wouldn't let me in the door because I had a COVID-19 diagnosis. So I had to talk to somebody on this intercom. And then they were like, well, no, you can't come in because you've got COVID-19. So then I had to go and sit in the car, and then they rang me. So there I was having this appointment. Apparently they were supposed to be checking whether I had enough oxygen in my blood, but they wouldn't let me in the door. So I had to have this phone call with somebody, and I was like, well, in a usual circumstance, when I've got a coronavirus type viral infection, I'm able to have steroid, oral steroids or something else. But I've been told you know, by one of the people in the space of the last week that this wasn't a good idea. When he was like, oh, well, I don't know, so we'll just give you prednisolone because we don't know if it's COVID symptoms or asthma symptoms. So I technically was my own doctor. I asked for the drug and they gave me the drug. So this is what I ended up with. So I got that on the 29th. I mean, it was quite, because it was a Sunday, the pharmacies didn't open until 11 anyway. So I got a 5-day course of that. Yeah, 5 days, because you take 8 of these every day. And they, covering my name, they just give you a little bit of help when you are suffering from something viral. That's what they're supposed to do. And I can't believe I've had to fight to get that. And I can't believe that when I spoke to my doctor, because the place that we ended up driving to was just a doctor's surgery. It wasn't set. I was told that it was set up for COVID, but it wasn't. It was just a doctor's surgery, just a basic doctor's surgery. But like I say, there was no point in going there because I had to sit in the car park. And then they just sort of, they opened the door and they'd left the prescription. So you know how you have like automatic doors and then another bit that you walk through, you know, for fire regulations. They left my prescription in there and they all sort of like fled, and I came in and took my prescription. And they, because I'd like said, well, you're supposed to be testing whether I've got enough oxygen in my blood, they'd left one of those fingertip devices for me to put on to check. So they sort of like leered through the door and said, yeah, you seem to be okay. And then that was it. So talk about making you feel like a leper. There is no healthcare. I don't see how the NHS can be overrun when they're not doing anything. I mean, it's not instilled my faith in anything. It's made me very angry. The amount of phone calls that you get, everything's done by phone, but everybody's clearly having a big old, you know, whale of a time on their wages at home. These health professionals, nobody is interested in helping. So what was this? This is the 29th that's on. So I'm on the Sunday there. Track and Trace said that I could come out on the 30th. So they phoned me and said, how are you? And I said, well, I'm not well. I'm not going to be, and they said, well, you can leave the house tomorrow because, you know, you're not contagious anymore. And I said, well, I'm so ill now, I'm not in a position where I can leave the house. So that's where I was. I've pretty much quarantined all of December now, even though I'm not contagious and I'm allowed out. I've felt that ill. The reason that I'd started Vlogmas on here on the 8th was because of the first week of December. I was just constantly coughing. I was trying to get myself back into work because I was just thinking, I can't sit here and just sit here and feel depressed. I've got to start doing things. So I was like doing little things around the house. I don't have, I see that's another thing. There's £500 which you can claim if you've had a positive test and you have to isolate. No, you can't claim that. Nobody can claim that. You have to be, you know, absolute poverty stricken to be eligible for that. So I wasn't eligible for that. I didn't want to go on to the dole or anything like that. I've just been on universal credit and they've been a royal pain in the arse. So I didn't want to have to claim universal credit again and get, you know, more mithering phone calls. The week and a half that I've had the people from Track and Trace following me, they're ringing me up all the time. They always seemed like they didn't know what they were talking about as well. Just another bunch of civil servants who, you know, don't know their arse from their elbow. I was told by various people that the first text that I'd had saying that I was allowed out on the 23rd, yeah, the 23rd of November, that was right. I should need to stick by that. And then I was having another phone call from somebody saying, no, you can't go out until the 1st of December. And then, you know, you get another call later in the day from somebody saying, right, this is the last day of your isolation. And I'm like, well, I've been told something from somebody else. I'm told something from somebody else. like I say, I'd started going downhill that week anyway. So, I mean, it's just as well, really, because, I don't know, nobody had a clue what advice to offer you on track and trace on the NHS hotlines. So I have had to fight this on my own. I decided after my first, after I was allowed out on the 1st, I decided I wasn't going out because I just could not breathe. I couldn't breathe walking around my apartment. I was getting out of breath. How I could possibly go into a shop wearing a mask, it just wasn't going to happen. So I just sat here and tried my best to sort of get myself on my feet. I sat and drank juice like it was going out of style, lemon juice as well, because at that point I was now coughing stuff up. I don't know why. Even after I'd stopped taking the course of prednisolone, I was still ill. I'm not right now. I have done a test run last Saturday, which was the 12th. So that would have been 2 weeks after I was first supposedly allowed out. I decided to go with my husband to Sainsbury's and some other shops to see how I got on, because I had been at that stage sort of been doing a little bit of work throughout the day. He'd been helping out with my business, taking my post, and he still is doing that because I don't feel that able. On the Thursday prior to that Saturday, the 10th, I'd gone out to get some milk and gone around our local charity shop, and I was okay. I thought I was okay with the mask. And then when I went round Sainsbury's and I went round the charity shop, which I only ducked in there for 10 minutes, and then I went to TK Maxx with my husband just to do some normal things. I couldn't cope with the mask. It was so weird. I became one of those people who drops it down over your nose, and I was having to breathe out of my nose, which thankfully wasn't blocked by then. But it was really weird. And then when I came home, I went to sleep because I felt awful. And then on the Sunday, I could feel liquid on my lungs again. So that was only last weekend, and it's Friday now. But wearing that mask, I could feel the liquid on my lungs. I could feel my rib pain again. So there's something there. I'm still stuck with something that's been caused by COVID. I've still got a little rattle here. I'm doing things because I'm quite an active person anyway, and I want, I've worked all this week and I've worked quite hard. I am going to try and get a mask exemption, I think, because I can't see me being able to go into a shop with a mask ever again. I've worn masks all through when we returned out of when we came out of lockdown, and I was fine with it, but not now. And I think that's it, is that while the government are messing around saying, cough, temperature and loss of taste and smell, it's ridiculous. People have got this virus, and they are passing it on to people like me. I don't think, I don't think I was ever really that bad, but I've felt bad and I feel lethargic, and my husband's felt lethargic after it, and it does hit you. And I do think a lot of people are carrying it without symptoms, and it is a real problem. And I don't think the government have done anything right with this. And it does feel a bit like they're trying to socially cleanse people, not ethnically cleanse, socially cleanse, because they're sort of asking people now to make intelligent decisions about, what they do at Christmas. I'm not going anywhere at Christmas because I know I'm not well enough. I know that I'm going to be struggling with this for a number of months. I have got a hospital phone appointment, which I've been able to make, and that's going to be on the 6th of January because that's the earliest they could get me in, and they wouldn't entertain it beyond that. So I've sort of left it with that because I just thought I'll just keep doing my own thing. But it is real. It does affect people who are vulnerable. So people have really got to think about what they're doing at Christmas. It's going to hit people who are vulnerable. Social bubbles don't work, because the social bubble is what brought this to me, because I haven't left my flat, but my husband works in one social bubble. And well, that's pretty much my story. I'm trying not to be too angry a woman about it, but I'm just, the government are up to something. I'm quite thankful in a way that I've caught it and I've been able to get my own immunity for it, because I mean, God knows how long it will be before the vaccines reach the general population, because it's going to be months. I don't know, but it is, there is that percentage of people who are going to be affected by it, and the only thing the NHS have to offer is ventilation, because they just don't have any clue otherwise. And I just really didn't want to end up in hospital. So eucalyptus and orange juice was what got me through, and a lot of rest, I suppose. But I am stuck with this cough, and I'm going to be stuck with it for the foreseeable. And hopefully when I speak to my asthma specialist, they'll have some ideas of what's going on. Yeah, that was just track and trace again. Not really, it was a robot. No, so it was track and trace. Anyway, I'm gonna fold this video up now. Fold it up. It's not that fascinating a subject. I'm not exactly one of these people who is going to get the vaccine, but I'm not adverse to having a vaccine. I've had the other text message I've had saying, we want your plasma. So they want me to donate plasma to inject into people who are suffering with COVID-19. So you ain't telling me that I haven't got immunity by having suffered with it. But there you go. It's just something just odd about it. I feel like, you know, they're doing the bare minimum to suggest that they're actually doing something to help. But social cleansing, it's not just about the people who are dying from COVID. This year I've lost my brother, and he's had to die alone in a nursing home, not from COVID, but, you know, from multiple sclerosis. But it's gutting. It's absolutely heart-rending that we weren't able to be with him, because he probably just thought he was abandoned. That's social cleansing. That's, you know, they don't want all these people in care homes are costing the government money, so we get rid of them. Just, you know, cream off these people. People who are losing their livelihoods because of lockdown. You know, a lot of those people are going to commit suicide. They're going to have health problems because of stress and anxiety. And, you know, obviously there's going to be homelessness, people who can't feed themselves. You know, they're creaming off another load of people. And then what we're having in March, we're having a census. So then they can see how well they've done. Let's see how well we've done. Oh, hey, nobody who went to Eton died. How interesting is that? So, yeah, I am angry. There is something that ain't right about... I wasn't necessarily one of these conspiracy theories, but having had COVID and then finding, you know, asking for help and not getting the help, and finding that there's no help available for this thing that is the crux of the pandemic, when they've been going on about, you know, NHS, clap for the NHS, and then there's nothing there. You're met with a wall of silence and no help. It just smacks of something else. And I don't know. And like I say, when I was in June and I'm supposed to be shielding, and then suddenly it's just like, well, this is costing us money, this person, you know, is costing us money. Take them off the shielding list, blow them, get rid of them. It's just like, get them out there to get the COVID. Get, you know, we're not, these figures are trending in the wrong way. You know, we're trying to, you know, get rid of the riffraff. These people in the northwest, lock them down, take away their livelihoods, get rid. I'm an angry person about it. But like I say, I'm not going anywhere for this Christmas. I'm not going to go and see my mum, as much as I would love to go and see my parents. I've just, although I'm immune, whatever I could possibly do that might like bring it to them, I just don't want to bring it to them, because they're in their 80s and they will be like, they'll be in the process of having their jab, and I just think if I could just wait and just see them after, and I just hope that none of their neighbours are like calling round to them and the rest of it. And I can just cross my fingers that these things aren't happening. But I don't know, I just think you don't want to be that person who sat there in Christmas of 2021 going, oh, if only we hadn't done what we did last Christmas, such and such would be here. And that's the thing. Yes, I am on the road to recovery. I'm not quite there. My husband hardly had any symptoms and just sort of got on with it, and he's tired and, you know, lethargic a bit, and he knows he's had it. But the majority of us will get through it, but there are people who won't get through it. And do you really want that person to be somebody in your family who you'll never see again? And that is the point, because you don't want to be, I think there was a point where my husband did feel terrible because he brought it to me. But, you know, if you're going to get COVID, you're going to get COVID because of your, you know, your daily activity. But you can limit how many people you see and give it to. Because I really don't want, I wouldn't want to think, on top of having my parents' funeral, that I'd brought them COVID because we'd gone flying over there for Christmas. I'd rather see them properly next year. So yeah, negative. But most of us will get through COVID, but just think. And I'll knock off talking about the subject which we're all sick of hearing about. Thank you for watching.